Dear friends of the Tom Photo channel, have you been wondering if it makes sense to get a full-frame DSLR and which one to get? Are you looking to take a step up from the crop sensor camera? If yes, I have a story for you today. It's about one of the most affordable and capable choices out there, Nikon D610. But will it improve my photography is my main question, or could it potentially make my photos worse? The time has stopped for full-frame DSLR, and any DSLR for that matter, as major manufacturers are announcing that they are halting their development of new models and will instead shift their focus to hybrid cameras. They're still making them, but no new models. So what we have right now is the best models that there are ever going to be. Since it's not going to get any better, it should be a perfect time to buy them. The prices are dropping and you still have lots to choose from, including many that have been minimally used. The DSLRs still offer faster shooting experience and better battery life than the hybrids. Their pentaprism viewfinders are still favored by many pros over what the hybrids offer. The mirror protects the sensor when changing lenses in difficult conditions. But most importantly, they can use the entire array of lenses from the past times. Especially with Nikon, because Nikon's been very conservative about changing their lens mount. This is why I own a Nikon D610. At 850 grams without the lens or any extras, this camera is like a rock, solid and stable, but heavy. This is the price you pay for the breathtaking image quality, color depth, and dynamic range. Well, some of this weight comes from the in-body motor that can drive your motorless lenses. Then again, not a single gram comes from in-body image stabilization because there's no such thing in this camera. This is the only major technical problem I have with this camera. The other smaller problem being no front curtain electronic shutter on this camera for some reason. It does offer a delay between the mirror movement and the curtain movement, so you can get rid of the mirror slap in those long shutter speed landscape photos for the next year's calendar. But the front curtain electronic shutter would allow you to eliminate any trace of shaking entirely. I have to come back to the bulkiness and weight of the camera because this means that the D610 cannot be my only camera. This is a Sunday camera, reserved for the special photography trips. There's no way you'd routinely carry it with you when you go to work, pick up the kids from school, or run some other errands. No, you're going to look for excuses to leave the camera at home. This means you're going to miss out on the best opportunities. With this camera, you're going to be taking amazingly beautiful images of boring things, while you're taking ugly pictures of interesting things with your smartphone. A small camera would get you the best of both worlds. You'll have great photos of interesting things. For me, this is where my Fuji hybrid cameras come in, but more about this in other videos. The problem is that my favorite camera manufacturer, Fuji, doesn't make full-frame cameras, but I wanted to have a full-frame camera in my collection as well. Since I own Nikon lenses and Nikon is my other favorite, Nikon was an obvious choice. I also considered D750, D800, D810. I would have bought any one of them, but only the D610 came my way as a minimally used camera in brand new like condition at a very reasonable price. So I went for it. You see, these cameras are tough to buy, as I detail in my How to Buy a Used Camera video, link is below, because full-frame cameras are typically sold by professional photographers, and they don't baby their gear, as they sometimes proudly state. Pros take lots of pictures, so it's hard to find a unit with a low shutter count and previous tender care. You're in better position with crop sensors because many people buy or receive them only to find out just 500 pictures later that photography was not for them. My D610 has 24 megapixels and this is a good number. Often the reason you want a full-frame camera is that it has large pixel area and will thus produce very clean pictures at high ISO. This favors small number of pixels. The second reason could be that you need to make humongous prints, perhaps to cover a good part of your living room wall. This favors a large number of pixels. Of course, the more of them pixels you have, the less clean the photo. So there's a balance. I like my 24 megapixels quite a bit. But it's not just the low noise that a large sensor gives you. It gives you a much better dynamic range, color depth, but also a shallower depth of field. Most photographers like that because this means better bokeh and more artistic outcomes. It gives you that magazine look, especially when combined with proper lighting techniques. A crop sensor comes with a crop factor, typically 1.5. With crop sensors, your 35mm lens will behave like a 50mm lens would behave in front of a full-frame camera. Is this good or bad? Certainly the same telephoto lens becomes less of a telephoto when you upgrade from crop sensor to full-frame. So I always use crop sensor when I photograph small birds or animals. Let me mention that your full-frame camera lenses work with both the crop sensor and full-frame cameras. You'll be using the central part of your lens's projection with a crop sensor. Things are not so smooth the other way around. A crop sensor camera-specific lens does not work the same with full-frame. Sure, you can take a picture, but you'll want to switch to full-frame camera to crop mode so that only the central part of the sensor is used and you don't get dark dead areas around your image. So full-frame lens on a crop sensor camera will work, but will not unleash all the lens can offer. A crop sensor camera lens with full-frame camera just doesn't make sense since it will not let you take advantage of the large sensor. The advice I gave to myself back when I was using only crop sensor cameras was to buy only full-frame lenses in case I decide to go full-frame in the future. At least for me, this advice for myself worked well. Now I have access to full-frame camera. Has my photography benefited from it? There are many aspects to this question. Technically, maybe. More of my pictures are more clear, but the more boring pictures are the most clear. This wonderful camera has not made me a better observer. It has not improved my feel for composition or made me see colors better, and it has caused me to miss some photos. And I have left it home on some days. You see, the camera doesn't make a photographer. I like to say that Leonardo da Vinci was not a good painter because he had a very good paintbrush. Same with photography. You could give me any camera you want, but Ansel Adams would beat me to dust with a shoebox with a small hole in it. If a small camera makes you see things better because it draws less attention away from what you're really doing, then a smaller camera is better. With all due respect to Nikon, I've taken a step back with colors when starting to use the D610 or any Nikon. You see, my main camera is crop sensor Fujifilm X-T30. See my video link below. Once again, I absolutely love Nikon. Nikon fans, please don't feel offended. But spending most of my photographic time in the Fuji's world of colors, I feel like a bit colorblind with my D610. Fuji would sometimes kick me breathless straight out of the box. Not with color intensity, but with how well the color works for the scene. With Nikon, I have to invest time and work to get the same colors. With RAW files and technology, everything is possible, but it takes extra time. But when this time is taken, and the true hidden power of my Nikon D610 is unleashed after hard work, the results are powerful. Same as Fuji, but with better clarity and better detail. So this is a balancing act. I love my Nikons too. Speaking of clarity, my crop sensor Nikon or Fuji sensors don't have low pass or anti-aliasing filters in front of their sensors, but the D610 does. The manufacturers have been reluctant to remove them from full-frame cameras, citing the need to control more or weird patterns and color from small repeating motifs in the photo. The low-pass filter should reduce pixel-level detail because it's yet another layer between light and the sensor. Luckily, with full-frame cameras, the effect is really tiny because the pixel area is so large. Even at the pixel level, I've not been convinced that there's something there. I don't have the same camera without the low-pass filter to do a demo right now, but I've inspected such photos taken by other users. The low pass will have an effect on crop sensor camera, but not so much with larger sensors, so don't worry about this aspect. I have to admit that my crop sensor Nikon D3500 has the focus points scattered much better over the entire field of view. The D610 has them cramped or squeezed together in the middle, and I have to focus and recompose when I photograph. This technique takes time, but most importantly can result in suboptimal focusing when your subject is very close because the distance to the subject changes slightly when you do this. My Fujifilm X-T30 is a major winner in this competition because it has no limits where you put the focus point, and it happens all very quickly in a touch-sensitive manner. Good thing I use my D610 mostly for landscapes, where it is not as critical that the focus is accurate to the millimeter. But let's come back to the beginning and ask if it is reasonable to start walking the full-frame alley instead of the crop sensor street where your current home is. There's no clear answer. If you want to start taking more exciting photos and compose better, continue with your crop sensor. Making the camera even larger, even more expensive, and even more cumbersome to use is not improving things. The same is true if you need a camera for traveling and already see that you sometimes prefer a phone to your crop sensor camera. Also, don't upgrade if you simply photograph to store memories for yourself and you look at the photos on the screen or in a family photo album. For all these cases, full frame might kill what you already have. Crop sensors are developing fast and have become really nice. However, if you have a client who wants to buy photos from you with the intent to put them in books or on the wall, then your crop sensor may not be able to cut it. In the extreme case, you may even need a medium format or a film camera, but we're not discussing those here. But if photography is your number one hobby, no competition, and you particularly enjoy low-light photography, and you typically sneak out of the house before 6 a.m. on a cold and foggy autumn morning because you could not sleep because you were afraid to miss the wonderful fog photo opportunities, then you are my soulmate, and you should consider giving the full frame a try. Thanks so much for sticking with me throughout this narrative video. I will soon make a video on the technical aspects of my Nikon D610 as well. If you want to support my channel, I greatly appreciate if you consider subscribing to my channel or leaving a like. Till the next time, have a great day. Bye.